Good evening, everybody, and how are we all doing today? This is the Thursday. No, it's not. No, it's not. It is our Sunday night live stream. I'm looking a little bit phased out for some reason. Let me just try see if this makes it any better or something. Uh, Not sure. Not sure. I'm just looking on the screen and I look a little bit whited out for some reason. Anyway, that is not important. We have got a decent phone signal today, so hopefully the picture is coming through nice and clear. Now, today, as I've said in the comments and I mentioned last week, I want you to all share your time-saving gardening tips. This is something that I think is very, very relevant at the moment, as May is generally a very, very busy month. So we'll get into that in just a moment. Let's see what anybody is saying out there. So first of all, Ballycillian is out there saying hello all. Good evening to you. We got Adrian out there saying hello. Good evening to you. Turbo Streamers out there saying good evening, Veg Podcasters. Good evening to you. Jenny Hullett is out there. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all well and had a great week. I was hoping to plant out today, but the nettle roots had different ideas. Hopefully by Wednesday, everything will be all sorted. Kate Spratt is out there. Good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. And she goes on to say, I made it to the allotment today, got my beans put in and some sweet peppers, aubergines and carrots. Hubby did the trimming for me as I'm no longer able to do it myself, working on accessibility for the plot. That's something I think we might have to talk about in a future show, actually, is the accessibility. Oracle is out there saying, what about everyone? And my friend Stuart Jackson over on the other outlet. Hope you've had a great week. Let's find out Stuart is out there. Philly SBB is out there. Hello, everyone. Good evening to you. Hargrave Gas is out there. Evening, everyone. Hope you've all had a great week. Anna Jones is there. Good evening, Garners. Good evening to you. Gary is out there. Hello, everyone. Good evening to you. Andrew Norris, evening all. Hello there. For Turbo Stream, Andrew, all the way in Croatia. I'll assume you're still in Croatia at the moment. Hope you're well. Ian McCragan is out there. Evening, everyone. Good evening to you. Stuart Jackson is out there. Evening, Richard and Veg Army. Hope everyone is well. Just to let you know, we raised £282 this week for the Brain Tumor Charity. £282. That is fantastic. Who else? Graham Arnold is out there. Evening, everyone. And Amanda is out there in the Facebook group. Anybody who's watching in the Facebook group doesn't always come up with your name, so just do what Amanda has done and let me know who you are at the end. Scott is joining us. Good evening, all. Good evening to you. Stuart Jackson says that you look okay on Facebook. It might be just me. It just looks a little bit washed out. Not sure. Stuart's going straight in. Time savings. Get someone else to do the work. Indeed. Dad is out there. Good evening to you. Margaret is out there. Hello all. Good evening to you. Digwell is hi all. A tired Diggy. A lot of walking at Malvern. How was Malvern, Digwell? Let us know how it was. Ian says time saving tips. Hiring a gardener to do it for you. Just one idea there. Just pricked out 50 plus tomatoes and about the same sweet corn. Good stuff. Good stuff. Brian's Garden Polytunnel is out there. Good evening to you. And I think that is everyone. Turbo Stream says to Digwell, I looked and looked, but didn't see you today. 14,000 steps and counting. I hope anybody who did go to Malvern had a great time. I wish I could have gone, but these things get in the way. Anyway, time-saving tips. That's what we want to talk about today. I can see this sort of cloud. It's looking like I'm under a cloud for some reason. We had technical problems, but like literally 5 minutes, I had no power in this shed. So it could just be something related to that. So time-saving tips. And this is what I want to talk about today. I think this is something that every gardener really wishes they had. And I've got quite a few that have gone over my head while thinking about this subject. For me, one of the biggest time-saving tips that I have found is a pretty obvious one, I'm going to be honest with you. And it's not necessarily a time-saving tip. It just feels like it saves a lot of time. It's what I call, or what is known as, little and often. And this is where I try and go down to the allotment on a daily basis on the way home from work. And I will do sort of 20 minutes, half hour weeding and watering. And I find by doing that, I used to effectively try and save everything for the weekend when I had more time. But I found that by doing that, I'm able to only need to spend 2-3 hours on the allotment at the weekend, which gives me more time to sort of spend with the wife and the dog, and it doesn't feel like the allotment is taking over my life. I love going to the allotment, don't get me wrong, I love gardening, so I would happily let it take over my life. But there are times when I feel the need that we need to go out and do something. Next weekend is a good example. Next Saturday, I'm not going to be able to do any gardening because it's the wife's birthday, and we're going to a dog show in Ardenlight, so I'm not going to be able to do any gardening, and I'm not worried. For the first time, I feel like the allotment. It's not perfect, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the allotment isn't in need of that major weekend sort out. It's going to be taken care of, same as the plot at home. So, as I said, not necessarily a time saving tip, but a tip that I find saves me time. Now, let's see what anybody is saying. Digger is saying to Turbo Stream, I saw you and hid. Excellent stuff. Turbo Stream says he was a wise man for doing that. Indeed, that is a good one. Ian says, just been planting my cucumber and kale today. Finally got my potatoes in the raised bed as it took barrow loads of compost to fill it. So he's been busy on his garden. Ian, I have sown the what they call shark fin melon seeds. So get ready for those is all I'm going to say. But what I say with raised beds and potatoes, I always start at the bottom and then I just build the soil up around the potatoes. But another thing that I do with raised beds is, and I don't know if anybody else is, it's almost a hugelculture method. Put twigs and things in the bottom and then build on top of that. Just a few ideas I'm going to throw out there. Ian is a professional gardener, so he probably knows more than me, to be honest. Stuart says, prepare your garden well, like weed as and when then. It will be easier in the long run. Like weed as and when then. But prepare your ground well. Good time-saving tip, actually. Yeah, like I said about tackling the weeds on the allotment regularly, just by getting a good start in the beginning saves a lot of time. Turbo Stream says, mulch, and when you're done, mulch some more. Again, I love mulching. In fact, that is probably one on my list of time-saving tips. Every time I cut the grass, I use those grass clippings to mulch around my plants. At the moment on the allotment, I've mulched the onions. We're going to be moving on to the garlic. At home, the brassicas are mulched. And one rule that I do have when it comes to mulching, however, you need a good few inches of grass clippings or compost or whatever material you use, and straw, seaweed, or anything like that. The rule I do have is it's far better to mulch quarter of a bed well than to try and do the entire bed poorly. So you want to make sure, a few centimeters of mulch, even if you only got enough to do a small amount of a bed, it's better than trying to do the rest of the bed poorly. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Stuart says, I make lots of paper pots in the winter so they are ready for when I need them in the spring. In fact, that is a very, very good tip, actually, for something that I did want to bring up in the winter time. It's a great time for me to get those infrastructure jobs done so that come the spring, you're hitting the ground running. This could be things like tidying the sheds, building beds, all those sort of things. And paper pots, as Stuart says, making sure they're done before we get ready for the growing season and using that quiet time to make the most of that time. Idaho Garden Girls joined. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. We are looking for time-saving tips in the gardening, of course. If anybody wants to zap in, the link is going up in the comments. I still can't find the phone at the moment. I'm not sure what I have done with it. Stuart says, sorry about the comment, senior moment. I cut up yogurt pot for labels, so when I am in the greenhouse, they are in the pot when I need to use them. Yeah, good. Again, I agree with that. I buy the little plastic labels when they are on discount, but I always leave them in my greenhouse in my potting table for when I need them. Now, Amanda says, I have hoed the beds quickly on every visit for a couple of years now. to pop out new weeds, and I've found it makes a difference. This is since you said Leo and often on the podcast, and it's the best advice I have had so far, says Amanda. Yeah, Leo and often, it's not the phrase that I created, I'm afraid to say, but it is a good phrase. You hit the garden regularly, daily, but only 20 minutes, half hour, and you'll keep on top of things a lot better. That's definitely what I have found. This has led to one plot being easily maintainable, and I'll be in a mess without it. Now I'm trying to juggle gardening and long COVID. Sorry to hear about that. I'm steadily working on getting my second plot to this position too. I can't wait, says Amanda. Yeah, again, I find I've got 2 half plots on the allotment and the garden, both of which are similar size. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time. Scott says, I find having decent tools and the right tool for the job saves me time. That is actually a very good point. Decent tools, definitely. There's nothing worse than a tool breaking when you need it. Making sure your tools are sharp as well. A sharp hoe, a sharp spade makes the job easier and quicker. And having the right tool for the job. I think I've often said is I keep like multi-tools on me just for those sort of jobs that I just need to get done all the time, or you're just walking around and it's very easy to quickly make the cut or something, or tie up a screw just when you are seeing it. Turbo Stream says tip 2. Have I missed tip 1? Have I missed tip 1, Turbo? Let me just go back. Oh no, I did read that one. Tip 2, direct sow, especially things like broad beans. They will grow when the conditions are correct. Now, I don't direct sow. I very rarely direct sow. I tend to sow at the right or in greenhouse and move them out and then plant out direct. But I have the space to do that. I just find direct sowing gets swamped out by the weeds. But for a time-saving tip, it makes a lot of sense. Rebecca Hawkins has joined, says, sorry for being late, busy day in the garden. We will let you off. Hope you are well. We are looking for time-saving gardening tips today. Brian's Garden and Polytunnel says, sometimes you can save time by just taking a short time out. Have a brew and just think about what you're doing. Yes, I completely agree with that. Sometimes it's very easy to get swamped down with what you think you need to be doing. Sometimes you take a step back, sit down, cup of tea. I'm a big fan of writing to-do lists as well, because I find that helps sort of focus the mind to be a bit better. I'm just going to swap camera quickly and see. No, that doesn't look any better. Wrong one. No, it just, to me, the picture just looks a bit whitewashed. Jenny says, I pre-fill my modules and stack them up ready for sowing. Then I can steam through the sowing pile. Yes, that's actually a very good tip as well. Something I do similar. I always try and load up my pots with seed sowing compost and perlite the night before, make sure they're watered, and then I can just go in and water them. Same as when it comes to pricking out. I prick out my module pots, get those ready the night before, then I can just get up in the morning and do those. So yeah, good. Annie, good evening, Richard, reporting in from Pompeii. Hope you're having a great time in Pompeii. How lovely. What is the weather like there? Turbo Stream says, this year I mulched in late autumn. It definitely saves time in spring. Yeah. I think you would use your leaves that you get delivered, if I'm not mistaken, Turbo Stream. But mulching and more mulching, is just worth doing. I cannot stress. I go on about mulching all the time because I do find it to be an absolutely amazing a tool to use. Kate says, sort your seeds into categories using one of the plastic photo storage boxes. Makes it so much easier to find and store. Yeah, that's about organizing your seeds or organizing anything, isn't it? Yeah. Great idea. I mean, I'm a big fan. I've got all my seeds in my seed box alphabetically arranged, but some people might do them in terms of when the months that they are sowing them or similar things like that. There are a lot of different ways of organizing your seeds. I do want to stress that all these tips, there's no right or wrong way. It is what works for you. And anybody else could use that advice. The same as anything on social media, it's what works for that person that they are sharing. And you can take that advice or leave it. Digwell says 4 R's: repair, renew, replenish, remove, fix things, replace plants, and top up beds and compost, and weed, etc., etc. Is that your time-saving tip? Is that your routine when you get to the allotment? You start off with anything that needs repairing, replacing anything that needs replacing, and removing any waste. Is that what you're saying, Digwell? Repair, renew, replenish, remove. Duh. Good. Yeah, give us a bit more info on that, please, Digwell. That would be great. He also says a picture, and Margaret says the picture is perfect. To me, it just looks cloudy. It might be me being a bit funny about these sort of things. Stuart says, remember to oil your tools. They are always ready to use. That is actually a very good tip. So what I like to do behind me, I'm not going to lift it up because it's quite heavy. I have a metal bucket in which I've poured a load of sand, and onto that sand I've poured a load of vegetable oil. Every time I finish using a tool, before I put it away, I plunge it into that sand a few times. And what that does is the sand works as an abrasive. It cleans all the mud off the dirt off the tool. It acts as a bit of abrasive against any rust, but it also coats the tool in oil. Do that every single time, and it helps make my tools last for quite a long time. Same, we still need to sharpen our tools once in a while as well, but it does work at sharpening too and keeping them a little bit sharper too. Turbo Stream says, tip 3, use the time you save to walk around Malvern looking for looking for Digwell Green Fingers. How was Malvern though? Did you guys have a good time? I wish I had gone to the show. I've not seen many pictures about it, so I'm wondering how it was. Cillian says, make a to-do list and do nothing else until you make another list. Oh yeah. Stuart Jackson says, if you listen to a good podcast, you will save time looking for that book you can never find. Yeah, I mean, a good podcast, gotta love a good podcast, and they are so easy to get available. And these days, definitely very easy. Or a good live stream as well. Good YouTube channels as well. And he says it's pouring down, which I'm sure viewers would love to hear coming from a beautiful place like this. And Kate does say Pompeii nice. Pouring down in Pompeii. We've got beautiful sunshine here. We have all weekend. I don't know if I look a little, not red, but I'm certainly caught the sun. So I asked Digwell to go into a bit more about his 4 R's as his tip. So he says, yes, my tip, a routine to make sure that everything is done on every visit. No getting sidetracked doing something out of sync and forgetting the essentials. So he goes on, remove, weed, last 5 minutes every time before you go home. Was it remove? Oh, remove is the last one. So you finish off with weeding, which that makes a lot of sense. Ian says, my bed is hugel bed made out of corrugated sheets. It makes good potatoes or onions. I need to put some on the next bed for sweet corn. I'm talking about sweet corn on the podcast tomorrow, funnily enough. Nearly time to plant out my sweet corn. I reckon next week my sweet corn will go down the allotment. Idaho says, great tip on oiling tools. I also put linseed oil on my wooden handles and ladder because otherwise in this dry weather the wood splits. I hate having to spend time and money on replacement tools. Yeah, I'm with you on that as well. Linseed oil is great to use on the wooden handles. And I've got to say, I prefer wooden handles, but tools are very expensive these days. I still prefer the old tools, but they are available. Uh, Amanda says the seed subscription has saved me trying to work out what I need to sow and when. I buy extras too, but it helps me to have a base to start with. So that is the seed supporter, the Veg Grow Podcast Supporters Club that I run in order to support the podcast and a live stream. Each month I send out 6 seeds that can be sown that very month. It is a challenge sometimes to find 6 or to nail it down to 6, but it gives you a good base. And I always do include a few other seeds that can be sown in the newsletter as well. Stuart Jackson says it's just started raining in Wiltshire. Does anyone else make a list of what to do, then leave a list at home and do other things? So I tell you what then, if you are I'm pretty sure it's on Android, but if you've got a phone, a smartphone, it also works on a PC. Excuse me, a PC. I have an app called To Do. I think it's from Microsoft, this one, and it's great because I just make a list either on my PC at home, and I can put it in different categories. So I've got one for the allotment, one for the garden, one for personal, one for work, one for things like the shopping list type thing. And I use that. I also write it down in my little journal as well. But I find that this app, because I don't then leave it around, I've always got my phone on me and I can update it either on my PC or whatever, or my phone. It works so much easier than a bit of paper, which I can't believe I'm saying because I'm normally a big fan for using bits of paper. Digwell says Melbourne was okay, not better. If I didn't know the year, it could have been 2022. Exactly the same layout for the floral marquee, for example. I'm finding, I mean, I've only been to a couple of shows this year so far. One of them was very different, but I do find that each year the shows are the same. I think when I go to Gardener's World next month, I'm expecting much of the same as well. But I think I'm going to another one at the end of the year. I'm thinking we need to change them up and find different shows on different years. Turbo Stream says I was a bit disappointed with Malvern. £25 to look around at loads of traders selling expensive stuff I don't need. Not that much for an interesting veg garden in there. So the trouble with these shows at the moment is it's very early on in the season, especially for veg gardening. You might get some seedlings if you're lucky, but the veg gardening, they tend to be later on in the year because that's when the harvests come on. It's the wrong way round, don't get me wrong. I think there's a lot more they could do with the shows, but when it comes to veg gardening, you really want the ones that are later, the autumn shows that really do focus more on the veg gardening. But what I always say, yeah, I'm with you. When you're paying money to get in and it's just a load of traders, it's like paying to get into a shop, isn't it? What I always say is what you're paying for are the talks and the show gardens. So go and check those out and get your money's worth out of those. Digwell does go on to say, did you see the pathetic veg show? 2 potatoes entries and both were green potatoes. Shocking. I saw the photo. I'll show that a little bit later on. Richard Golden is joined. Hello all. Good evening to you. We are talking about your time-saving tips for the allotment of the vegetable garden or gardening in general. Turbo Stream says, I doubt I will go to Malvern again. I will go. Stuart says, I find the autumn show is better for veg growers. £25 was the cheapest ticket this year. That's a lot of money though, isn't it? £25. That's a lot of money. Turbo Stream says the allotment society bloke admitted all the veg on their stand were in pots. That's the secret of the show gardens. It's done for a reason because it is done for a reason. There's no malice behind it. It is done for a reason. As I said, when it comes to the veg gardening and even the flower gardens, you think, this is what I liked about the one I went to at the end of April in Bewley. We could go see some show gardens where you could see what your garden could look like, But then you went into the walled gardens of Bewley House, and you could see what your expected garden to look like is at the moment. And it was very much, for me, a good contrast, because it was very much, this is what it looks like at the moment, but it could look like in a few years' time. Does that make sense? I hope I'm explaining it well. Digwell says the Shoguns were poor quality. My plot looks better. Talking about Malvern. Now, keep your time-saving tips coming in. So one of my other time-saving tips that I want to share with you, and I thought this one today, I planted out a load of onion seedlings today down on the allotment, and I sowed way too many seeds, and I pricked them out and potted them up. These were sown on Christmas Day, Boxing Day, that back then. I pricked them out, potted them up into pot trainers, and then because there were so many, I've been potting off, planting them out, and I finally got them out today, which is probably going to be a little bit too late. So my tip is basically don't sow in too many seeds or more than what you can cope with. Another example is tomatoes. I've sown about 10 different varieties of tomatoes, and I'm only really going to be able to grow one of each variety. I sowed the whole packet just to get rid of them. Big mistake, because I should have just stuck with just sowing a few seeds, enough for what I need, plus a few extras to cover any losses. Too many seeds is not a good thing. That being said, things like onions, as carrots, that have the seeds have a very short life, you're best off sowing those anyway and then pricking them out. Kate says, Malvern is a bit far to travel for me. I go to Birmingham Gardens World Live. I will be down at Regis area at the Lindlaws in July if anyone is about for coffee. Yes, let me know when you are around, and we'll sort something out, because I'm next door to Bognor, basically. Birmingham as well. What day are you going to Birmingham, Kate? Because I'm going probably the Thursday and the Friday. I've yet to book it, but I'm looking at that. Digwell says my entry ticket was £20. And Turbo Stream says there was a stand showing a 4-foot square garden. You pack a small area with vegetables. Looked a good idea. I'd love to see a photo if anybody took a photo of that. I think the small gardens, they are great for showing you the ideas, but are they practical? And I mean that as somebody who tries to grow a lot of food in whatever space I have available. The balcony garden, is a great example, because that's only a meter by a meter. But I'm trying to incorporate it or build it to the point that we can fit in there with, as if it was a balcony. I can fit in there to do work as well as grow lots of food. Anna Jones says, grow plants that you know will succeed rather than wasting time growing plants not suitable for your soil and weather conditions. That's actually that is actually, alongside the sort of thing I said about growing too many seeds, that is also, why waste time growing things that you know won't grow? Concentrate on what you know does grow. Yeah, with you on that. Stuart says, if you oversow seeds, just put the extra plants outside with a donation tin. You will be surprised how quickly they go. I am thinking of that, I'll be honest. I am thinking of that, or along those lines. But it's a bit tricky with onion seedlings, because who's really going to want to buy onion seedlings? Kate says, Gardeners World will be going on Thursday the 15th. I'll hopefully see you there. If anybody else is going on the Thursday and the Friday, we'll arrange a time for us all to meet up. I think that's going to be a good way to do it, I think. Jenny says, my leftover onions will be planted as companion plants. I will use the foliage scent if I get a bulb, then that's a bonus. Okay, I get that. If they form a flower spike, then the bees, that does make it good. What are onions very good at? What are onions very good at deterring, and what makes them good what for what makes them good to companion. Uh, trying to get the phrases out. Nicholas joined. Hi, lovely. Sorry, not really tuning in properly. Been loaded in the van to go back to Cornwall. Of course, you were local, weren't you? I forgot about that. Hope you have a safe journey home. If I thought about it, I would have popped over and saw something. Scott says, I'm looking into getting a water pump so I can use a hose pipe for my IBC tank. That would save me a lot of time. This is something I've experimented a lot with, and you need a dirty water pump is ideal, and then to use a hose pipe. But what I would also look at is getting a pressure washer that doesn't need mains pressure. It can has like my pressure washer. I got an adapter that I can stick into a bucket of water. That it has a filter on the end, so it's good. But if you can get one of those, as long as you're not blasting your plants full hardy, it does actually work quite nicely at getting water everywhere. Just be careful you don't blast your plants with a pressure washer. Ballycillium, my leftover onions are multi-planted and used as scallions or spring onions, as I like to call them. Good. These are all good, very good ideas, actually. I've got 2 trays of onions left, and now you'll give me ideas of what I can do with them. I like the idea of scallions and companion planting. So this is great. This is great. Bosch battery is good. This is the Bosch battery water pump. Bosch battery powered water pump. I've seen those. Steve's Seaside Life and Garden, whatever he calls himself these days, he has one of those, and they look to be very good. I know Ryobi do something similar as well, which I try and do too. Nicholas says Dad was taken into hospital while visiting, but back home 1 a.m. this morning, back in the end of June. Well, we'll hope your dad is okay. We'll try and sort something out for the end of June. Digwell says, pot your onions amongst brassicas, great companions. I've planted out loads of brassicas today, so I will do that as well. Whereas the lime, don't the lime affect? I guess it's only there for companions, so it's not too bad. Jenny says, slug snails and various bugs don't like them. The foliage can hide young plants and shelter them. Flea beetles are not keen on them. Rodents are not keen on onions. This is a good idea. Don't you love it sometimes how we go down one road and you bring us up to these tips that I didn't think we would end up with? So, yeah, love it. Using onions and companion planting and the brassicas and things like that. I'm going to do it. I am going to do it. Those 2 trays of onions that I have left over are going to be doing companion planting. I'm going to do it. Just got a swig of coffee coming up. Now, keep your tips rolling. Now, last week, I tried to show you a video which went horribly wrong because I didn't upload it. But I've uploaded it today, and it comes from Kate, and it was all to do with No Mo May that we were talking about last week.
Hi, guys. So I know we were talking about No Mo May and how some people are doing it and not. As you can see, I am a huge fan of dandelions. I think they're absolutely fantastic, but I'm doing something slightly different from No Mo May, and that is actually leaving a section of my lawn to go wild, and that's going to be a permanent thing. So I've actually planted a load of wildflower seeds, and so while I'm going to be mowing sort of around those edges there, this section here is just going to be one wild meadow right in the center of the lawn, and it is starting to come to life. We've got some borage there coming along. As you can see, we've got a little critter there. So I think this is how I'm going to go forward with it, rather than leaving the whole thing to go wild. Just a permanent section for these little guys. Anyway, I hope that makes sense, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.
There we go. Sorry about, I was meant to share that with you last week, but it just went wrong for some weird reason. At least this week it has worked. But dandelions, yeah, great to make dandelion honey out of dandelions as well. We spoke about this, I think it was last week. There is a video on my YouTube channel about how to make dandelion honey, and it is absolutely delicious thing to do. And it's a vegan honey. If you are a vegan, it's a good way to do that too. Now, Nicola says, I put garlic and onions around the edge of beds for that very reason. It's a good idea. And in fact, you've got me really thinking, probably not this year, probably next year, I might just put all my onions around the edges, especially around, oh, you've really got me thinking about it. I've got some silver skinned onions that still need to go out. These are I could put around the tomatoes or something as well. So I love it when you guys get me thinking. Turbo Stream, onions in Nebraska bed that Julie noted Digwell have spare onions left. So yeah, good idea. Good idea. Strolch has been amazing, saving time weeding and keeping moisture in. Yeah, I've used Strolch in the past. It's probably one of the best mulches I've ever used. It's like a mineralized straw that's been shredded down, and it works as a mulch, but it also adds nutrients into the soil. It is brilliant. The only reason that I don't use it anymore, I used it on the allotment. It cost me £10 a bag, and that done. It definitely did one bed. I think it might have done two beds. So if I was to do all my beds on the allotment with Strolch, that would be about £140 I've worked out. Could probably do it a bit more at home, but I'm using the straw bale garden a bit more this year. So, but Strolch, absolutely amazing stuff. Absolutely amazing. Ian says he might be ready for a cuppa in Bognor as well. So we might have to do a meetup in Bognor in July if anybody is interested in that. Stuart says one tip is put a few bird feeders around your garden. That way the birds will help with all the insects pests. This will save you time walking around at night. That that is a great idea. Absolutely. I'm a big fan in encouraging the little birds, the thrushes, into my garden to deal with the slugs and snails. I always liken it that the slugs and snails are going to be patrolling the garden when I'm not there. They're going to be getting all those slugs and snails when I can't. And to be honest, since I've been encouraging all the birds into my garden, I don't get many problems with slugs and snails. The only area I do get problems with is in the greenhouse, because obviously the birds can't get in there, but I make nightly visits out to that now to deal with that. Kate says, sounds great, Ian. Jenny says, beautiful, love it. Talking about the photo Kate sent in. Hargrave Gas says, my chickens love dandelions. I think they prefer them to lettuce, which is fortunate. Yeah, my chickens love dandelions as well. And they love chard at the moment too. My perpetual spinach or chard, which is about 3 years old, it pulled up a flower spike the other day. So I cut it off and gave it to the chickens. They went mad for it. Absolutely mad for it. Got to sow some more chard soon. I want to get some more of that in. Gary says, I just harvested the silver skins you sent last year in the supporters club. 3 large jars full. Yeah, they are delicious, those silver skin onions. These are obviously the ones that are used for pickling onions. They are beautiful. Bit fiddly, but they are worth it. And they don't take up much room. 3 large jars. We always do jars and jars of pickled onions every year here at home. And trying to grow more of it is just fantastic. What we're hoping, we've just had some work done on a house, new larders built in. So we're trying to get some nice looking jars. So when we open it up, get like those pickled onions, those pickled gherkins. Just got to find the nice jars to create that. Yeah, I know it's not about how it looks, but it just makes things a little bit better, doesn't it? I love pickled items like that. Digwell says, my broccoli was planted through 2-inch deep Strolch. Every plant eaten by slugs. Resowing now, and I too swear by that stuff, or I did. Yeah, I think they do. I think the normal Strolch isn't very good at slugs, but I think there's one they do that has got slug and snail deterrents in it. I'm not sure how. I could be wrong on that, but I'm with you. I'm with you. Excuse me. Jenny says, pop some slate or stones for sunbathing pollinators and grass snakes. Beautiful to watch and beneficial. A bowl full of pebbles topped with moss and filled with water for the bees, etc., to drink as well. All about getting nature. We spoke about that last week. But on that subject, while I was on the allotment today, I saw my good friend, the common lizard, who lives down on my allotment. I don't know why they're called common lizards because they're not that common anymore. But there he was down on the allotment, sunbathing on my stones, and hopefully also eating some slugs and snails. I haven't seen him for a while. I normally find him inside my greenhouse, but I haven't seen him in there this year until today. But he was outside. Ian says, my gardening time-saving tip would be when you cut the grass, if you trim the edges first, when you mow, it picks up the cuttings. Yep. Yeah, that's a good one. Good one, indeed. Stuart says, another time-saving idea is join the supporters club. You will not need to go to the garden centre to buy seeds unless you need extra. Very kind of you to say that. I have designed it in a way to make it efficient for everybody. Details on that are at the veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Gary says, my parents recycle large jars of olives from Tesco's. Nice ovalish shape. Yes, we do something similar. And even the large pickled onion jars we recycled. It's the lids that can sometimes get a little bit rusty that we're careful of. But we want some like kilner jars, some nice kilner type jars, but we would have to buy so many of them to make it look the part. Chili Kate's joined. Sorry we are so late, but in exciting news, we now have a shed and divorce is back off the cards. Oh, fantastic, Kate. Chili Kate. Glad to hear you have a shed. A shed, I believe, makes an allotment. That's the only way I can describe it. If you've got a shed on the allotment, it makes life so much easier because you can just keep your tools in one place. You haven't got to keep carting them to and from. Time-saving tip. But also, it gives you somewhere to go when it rains or have a cup of tea and what have you as well. But yeah, definitely. Digwell is saying, don't forget to double dehydrate the pickled onions, first with salt, the second with sugar. Yeah, I've always done it with salt, so I'll try it with the second one with sugar. Based on that, I'll give that a try. Digwell also says the strolch with iron is the only one I use. I will be writing to them. Yeah, best way, write to them. There's probably a good reason. What else have we got? Anne Wright has to say, a bit late joining us driving home. My tip is straw duvet for potatoes. I plant them in the ground and apply a deep covering of straw. Less watering, no earthing up, so time saving. Yeah, straw, grass clippings is what I tend to use. I'm probably going to have to get straw for my potatoes soon. Thinking about it, but also feed them. Make sure you feed your potatoes too. That being said, do you want a little bit of a heads up about the potato experiment that I'm running, where I've got potatoes grown in different composts? So the Dalefoot compost, the most expensive compost, actually showed the potatoes or saw the tops of the potatoes first. And now all the others except the straw are growing very, very well. They all seem to have catched up except for the straw. I think the straw is definitely going to come off the worst, which I'm not surprised about, but it does make me wonder how we're going to go about straw bale gardening when it comes to potatoes. Interesting times. But as I said, the Dalefoot was the first to really grow or show itself, but the other have all caught up. So we're hoping that my homemade compost is going to perform the best. Idaho says to Ian, this is exactly what I should have done yesterday. What did Ian say? Oh, talking about strimming before you cut the lawn. I've always trimmed before I cut the lawn, so I'm with you on that. Yeah, so keep your time-saving ideas coming in. Now, I just want to remind everybody as well. First of all, Don't forget to like, don't forget to follow, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to click the notification so that you know when we go live. And that's whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. It's very important I say that. I do get told off. I forgot last week, I think it was, and I got an email telling me off for not saying it. So please do all that. The second thing I want to remind everybody is that we are doing our alternative veg grower show. There are details on that on the veggrowerpodcast.co.uk, but it basically involves you taking photos to send in for the competition. Quite a few categories, including the most beaten up wheelbarrow, the most ugliest looking vegetables. Get your pictures going for that, and or check it out and see if you want to enter any. We have got a few months on that left, so no panic, but I've just got to keep reminding everybody about it to try and get the fun going, get everybody involved. Now, Stuart Jackson says, another tip, do your research on peat-free compost, as some of it is rubbish. I was very lucky. Digwell sent me a tip about a good peat-free on offer at a well-known supermarket. Thanks, Digwell. What peat-free compost was that? I've got to admit, I've been lucky when it comes to peat-free compost. I haven't had that many problems, but I have seen some of the photos, some of the videos out there that people have sent in about the compost problems. It does make it look absolutely awful. A lot of green waste material that just isn't required or just shouldn't be in there. And bits of, I saw credit cards, shredded credit cards in some of these and stuff. Not great at all. Get your ideas, get your peat-free compost ideas. Or what peat-free compost you use. It's interesting times with that. Digwell says just granulated. This was in reply. Gary asked any particular type of sugar for the second drying, and Digwell says just granulated. Do them in salt overnight, rinse and do in sugar for the second night. Twice as much water comes out, crunchy for 12 months. I will try that. I'm going to try an experiment. We always do so many pickled onions. One with just the salt and one with the salt and sugar, and see if there is, or see how much of a difference it makes. I completely dig, well, you're cooking better than anybody, so I completely trust what you're saying. Time for a swig of coffee. I think that is everything that I need to talk or need to remind you to, like and subscribing and that. Gary says, thanks. I like Richard. I do salt, but not sugar. So, yeah. And Digwell, we were talking about the peat compost. Leventon peat free from Tesco's is doing worst on my trials. Lettuce a quarter of a size of the other 14. So check out Digwell's YouTube channel if you want to find out what that. But the peat free compost, it is so changeable, the difference that it makes. And it makes me wonder what's going to happen in the future. I am a big fan, I will admit, of using coir compost. But I know coir compost is not great. You've got to add stuff to it to make it worthwhile. But I'm a big fan of it, partly because I could get 140 litres for £14, and it's so easy to transport and things that I was quite impressed with it. But it is not a proper compost in the way that we think of it. Stuart says Miracle Grow was the compost, two bags of 40 litres for £9, so 80 litres for £9. I was lucky my son has a discount card, so I saved another £1.80. Yeah. So 80 litres for £9. That's not bad, is it? Not bad. Jenny says, I love natural grower compost, but it's not cheap. But I have to say, the last 6 bags of Aldi peat-free at £3.49 have been great. No big bits, no plastic. Seeds germinate quick. Hope it stays that way. Now, I found a peat-free compost in a shop called The Range, and I think it's like £3.50 a bag. But if you buy 4 bags, it's £2.50 a bag. I can't think what the make is. It's organic and it's free range. It's organic and it's peat free, sorry. but the compost is really nice, black, crumbly material. I've bought quite a few of it so far, and it really has done me quite well. I can't think who the manufacturer. I think it's only sold in a range, and it's got like a blue bag. They do a topsoil of the same type as well at the same price, but for £10 for 200 litres, that's the best. I like the Koya though because I find it just works well for me. Everyone's got their own opinion on Koya. I find that Koya needs constant watering, says Diggrow, and Jenny says, I wish they would call Koya medium, not compost. It's not a compost. Yeah, it is not a compost, but it kind of replaces peat. We can add it to compost or add feed to it. I personally, I take my Koya compost, I add perlite, and I add feed to it, and it does me quite well. You know, you only have to look at my fruit bushes at the front to see just how well they are doing. But I'm with you, it's not really a compost in the traditional sense. But that being said, our homemade compost isn't necessarily compost in that traditional sense either. It's more a soil improver or a soil amendment. Digwell says rocket grown compost had the most debris and it was the most expensive. That's quite shocking because I've met Rocket Grow and they seem to be a pretty good company, but these, you know, we've said the same so many times. Different batches of compost. We keep going down this compost route, don't we? Different batches of compost do produce different results. I find Koya needs constant watering. It's not too bad. It looks dry on the top, I find, with Koya, but once you dig down, it does seem to be quite moist, I find. A Miracle Grow is doing very well in the trial, Stuart. Yeah, so Miracle Grow seems to be coming out pretty well. And at that price, that's pretty good. But like I say, this stuff I found in the range, I'm pretty impressed with. And at that price, I don't think it's a bad price. I'll tell you what, let's have a grow along video. It's probably about that time. And this week it's runner beans. Well, hello everyone. It's very hot in this greenhouse. I'm sweating quite a bit, but we are here for a grow along as always. And this week I'm actually sowing runner beans, and the variety I've chosen is called Scarlet Emperor. Now, as always, please do share your runner bean growing tips in the comments down below so anybody else can pick up on them and use them themselves. Now, these are the seeds. I always think they're a beautiful colour when you look at them like this. And what I'm going to do, as I quite often do, is just pop them straight inside some of these root trainers. Now, we actually do have a bit of space in here at the moment. The sweet corn that we sowed a couple of weeks ago is now outside starting to harden off, and fairly soon they will end up down on the allotment, I reckon next week. So they will start off in here. I've already started some beans off that are off to a pretty good start, as I can show in all these cutaways. Doing pretty well. So I think this year I'm trying my hardest to grow lots of beans, and hopefully this is the year that we're gonna manage it. Now, this time of year, it's still a little bit too cold to sow these outside, but we could get away with it, I guess. But I'm starting them off inside because I find that starting them off inside just means we're less likely to get any problems with mice or rats eating our beans. And that's the main reason I start them off inside. Then once they're hardened off and the weather is good enough that they can go outside, we're going to plant these out in either at home or down on the allotment, somewhere sunny with plenty of free draining soil. Now, down on the allotment, I've already built the bean frames from them to grow up. I've used hazel for these, and I prefer the use of hazel. One, because I've got a hazel tree growing on the allotment, I can pick the hazel branches off to make these. But two, I think they just look so much better than bamboo canes. Anyway, once they're planted, we just keep them well watered, and pretty soon they should grow. Runner beans, I find, are incredibly easy to care for. They do need that support that they will wrap themselves around and grow up, and eventually we will get these red flowers, which of course the red flowers then turn to beans. And once the beans are ready for harvesting, once I can feel the beans in the pod, we pick them off as and when they are ready, and then we take them home and use them in a wide range of dishes. I've got to admit, I'm not much of a fan of runner beans, but my wife does like them, so I grow them for her. In terms of feeding, they don't need much feeding, I find. They could do with the odd bit of grome or something every now and then, but on a whole don't need much feeding. So as easy as that to grow them, and as I said, pretty soon we will end up with some delicious runner beans. So what I also like to do when they come to the end of a season and the runner beans are done, I just cut them off at the base, cut the stem off at the base, leaving the roots in the ground to rot down and add nitrogen to the soil. They are a legume, so they are meant to be very good for that. So as always, please do leave your own advice, your own tips in the comments down below, and I would love to hear them. Take care, guys. There we go. Yes, my runner beans are sown. I've got so many beans that I'm sowing at the moment. Peas, beans. But it's all a lot of fun, isn't it? I'm trying to grow a lot of these items this year. Next week, I'm thinking I'm going to do French beans, if that's okay with you guys. But get sharing your runner bean tips. I've already seen Margaret has came up with one tip. Keep your runner beans away from my niece. She nicked all mine last year. Was that Evelyn or Isabel? I will bear that in mind. Now, I saw some interesting comments come up between that. Ian is saying, it's a shame you don't see the old John Innes compost as loam-based. I also used to make my own Clempack compost maker using loam, peat, grit, or vermiculite. I always find that when you remember the packs of compost that would say we've added John Innes. Well, John Innes was always a grade of compost. Like number 1 was for seed sowing, number 2 was for cuttings, number 3, and so on. It was always a grade of the compost, not that's something that you could add. That was always my understanding. I always felt that was a bit of a con going on there. Now, Digwell says, I sat down next to a bunch of people for a breather today. I nearly choked on my cider when one said to another, I had a load of fungi and mushroom growing in my peat-free compost. So I scraped it off and binned it. I turned and said, that means it is good compost. He was stunned. Yeah, you know, if you've got something growing it, all that fungi, it's good compost. Don't bin it. I mean, I've got to get rid of the mushrooms because I'm allergic to mushrooms, but I don't see it as being a negative thing. In fact, I find that the more we see compost, or the more we see mushrooms growing in our beds or anything, the better the bed seems to produce. So, good one. Jenny has shared a really good tip. For bean seeds that I cannot fit in the greenhouse, I pop them in an old hamster cage outside. Saves time as I can sow lots in one go, and it's rodent proof. That's a very good idea. Very, very good idea. I'm looking at building some outdoor growing, like an outdoor, what's it called? Cold frame. That's the word. Or things like that, just to give me a bit more room in the greenhouse at times. But something like an old hamster cage might just help it as well. Digwell says, don't forget to twine the runner up the cane anti-clockwise. Yeah, I find it just finds its own way. I don't really tie them in, but I find it makes its own way up there. Digwell, my fungus is still growing strong. Peas are looking happier now. Excellent. Kate says, I've done so many beans today. Yeah, I've done loads of beans all week, and I'm just ploughing on with them because I want to go so many. Peas, beans, and sweet corn is my real priority this year. Ian says, use seaweed extract on runner beans if they go yellow. Didn't know that, but that makes sense. Seaweed extract is a great fertilizer or feed. So using it on runner beans when they go yellow, good ideas. And Margaret says it was Isabel. She even took the ones out of the freezer. Luckily, she doesn't come around here that much, but if she does, I can taunt her with the runner beans. It's funny. It's funny. I know this is a slightly odd conversation for the people that don't know, I know. But Jenny used to love my granddad's. Jenny's my sister and Isabel's mum, for those that don't know. Jenny used to love my granddad's runner beans, and she would often munch them as well. So you can blame Jenny for that, Margaret. Nicholas says runner beans can overwinter if mulched in a warm area. They ferment multi-stems second year onwards. I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me. So many things will do overwinter if they are mulched or if they're given some protection. Or, as you know, I do no dig, and I said about just cutting the stem off. I find even root leeks, when we cut them off at the ground, they can regrow from the roots in the ground. So yeah, it is certainly possible to get more than one cutting from these plants, or get more than 1 year going. Johniness just means it has a JL based fertilizer in it. JL based fertilizer is NPK 7.210, except seed compost, which has no fertilizer. I always thought Johniness was just the grade of the compost. The John Innes Institute, I think it was called, which would grade the compost. Interesting how things change, isn't it? And that makes sense. If it is a fertilizer, that makes sense why they say added John Innes. So there you go. I've learned something there that I didn't know before. Yeah, I'm just talking of what more beans we've got to sow. I've just suddenly thought, well, I've got more Scarlet Emperor, which I probably should do. What else have we got? Broad beans meteor. No, we're not going to do those. I've got enough broad beans. My broad beans are just starting to show themselves at the moment, so which is great because I'm finally going to start harvesting my broad beans. A little bit late this year, but this is our second sowing of broad beans. We've been harvesting a lot of asparagus, a lot of spinach, rhubarb. What else have we had? Something else, and I can't think what it was. But we are getting a lot of food just coming in at the moment, and it's doing well. And I'm really pleased with the broad beans. As I said, my first sowing got wiped out in the frost, so the second sowing has had to make up for it. Digwell says JI do also make different composts, 1, 2, and 3 to hold the fertilizer. Yeah, I always thought it was a grade when I've looked into it in the past. So Ian says JI was 1 for seed growing, then 1 for potting on, then 1 for bigger plants. It's very different to water than peat. If you mix loam, vermiculite, and grit and fertilizers, it makes a light compost. Yeah, I mean, it's all very interesting how things have changed. As I said, my understanding years ago was John Innes was just a grade, but the John Innes Institute it was called. But obviously, as they got on in time, marketing perhaps, they've expanded into other things as well. So why not? Why not indeed? Anybody else got any other runner bean tips? I'm just looking through. I've got one of my pots of seed. This mostly peas and beans that I've got to say. Soya beans. I don't know how they're going to get on. We're not going to do the broad beans. That's that one. That's an empty packet. Empty packets normally don't live in here. Petit pois. Got to sow lots of those. As I said, I'm really going to grow lots of peas. Battleship. More peas, more peas. You get the idea. I don't need to go through this whole box with you of all the seeds that I can talk about sowing, but you get the idea. You get the idea. Digwell is saying you can always tell a compost with JI in it. It is bloody heavy. This is why I like queer compost, because I'm the type of person that never goes out with a bag. So I go shopping and end up buying queer compost and or a bag of compost and have to carry it back. That being said, when I was a teenager gardening in the village I lived in, way before I drove, I used to have to walk about 1.5 miles to our garden centre and then walk back 1.5 miles with a bag of compost just so I could do some gardening. So I would have loved some lighter stuff back then, but it's not the way it goes sometimes, is it? It's not the way it goes. So this weekend, it has been an absolutely lovely weekend, I've got to say. I've managed to do so much stuff. You're going to hear more on the podcast tomorrow, of course. But what did I manage to do? So yesterday I set up the straw bale. I say set up, it's been set up for a while. But I've sown peas into the straw bales. I've sown carrots. I've planted out tomatoes. I've planted out some cauliflowers. And I've got one bale left in which I'm going to be doing sweet peppers and chili peppers to see how they get on as well. In the vegetable gardens, we planted out our leeks, we planted out our silver skin onions, as I've said. We planted out some of our broccoli, and we planted out tomatoes as well. Our tomatoes are outside, and they seem to be doing pretty well. So we're getting there. We're getting there, is all I can say. Stuart Jackson says, is it too late to sow peas? I seem to have lots of seeds left. I have space. I just don't want to waste time. Thanks. No, it's not too late to sow peas. You can sow peas for quite a while yet. So get them in. Get them in. I'm having real trouble with peas germinating, if I'm honest, though. I sowed a couple of rows and they haven't done much, or one or two have popped up. So I'm going to be sowing a lot more, as I said, this week. Turbo Stream says, I sowed a few runner beans this week direct in the soil. I'm soaking a few French bean seeds just in case my direct sown ones fail. Always a good idea to have a backup. Hargrave Gas says, when I used to grow runner beans at my parents' house, I would dig a big trench, half fill it with food waste, peelers, etc., then top up with soil and plant beans above. Worked well. Yes, that's what's known as the bean trench, isn't it? It used to be a very popular way to garden, as it can be quite hungry plants. So yeah, it does make a lot of sense. Jenny says, I always sow a climbing bean direct as I plant the same bean plant, like succession sowing. As the original plant sows down, the second sowing is still growing strong. Yep, great stuff, great stuff. My peas are always down in pots just to stop the mice, hopefully. I'm not sure if it's mice that got my peas or what. All I know is I put 2 rows in, so directly where they are, and the amount of peas that have germinated, barely enough. So I'm trying other methods. I'm hoping in the straw bale they're going to grow as well. So next week, you okay with French beans for the grow along? Let us know in the comments if you are happy with that. Andrew Norris says, I'd love to plant my beans, but we have had almost a week of rain and another week of more rain ahead. Yeah, we've been lucky so far here, but we are behind. I will say that we are behind here, but we have been lucky with the weather here, especially this weekend. The weather has been absolutely beautiful, which is absolutely fantastic. Let's have a look at your photos as well, because always good to see your photos. Don't forget, you can keep sending these photos in either by email, social media, or in our Facebook group. Now, Scott has been dehydrating some apples, or it looks like apples, and other fruits in order to make fruit teas. He doesn't get on with caffeine, so his idea is to dehydrate some fruits in order to make fruit teas. Interested to know if this actually works out. Digwell, he shared this photo from Malvern today, and these were the only 2 entries in the potato competition. As you can see, they look a little bit green. I can see that. And it being only 2 entries, first and second place was given. He wishes he had entered. He didn't enter himself, but he wishes he did. But what I thought is, here we are, middle of May, far too early for any potatoes to really be ready, unless they are very, very early varieties. I thought they were too early myself. Shipyard Gardener is planning his next move while sat down in his garden contemplating on what to do. I love this. I love the fact he's got a mantelpiece in his garden in this as well. It looks absolutely fantastic. Nikki's got a sign on on her allotment because dogs are not allowed down on the allotment site. So she's put a sign with a picture of a dog and a tick. I've got to admit, our allotment only allows dogs that are under control, so it does get a bit difficult, but you can understand it. Kate is trialing different varieties of amaranth with a project set up by Garden Organic. Amaranth is, I think, a really tasty plant. We grow it as a microgreen, very, very tasty and useful. So it's interesting to see how the different varieties perform in different conditions. Now, Jenny has got her sweet potatoes, which are producing shoots and growing well. I'm very jealous of this, very jealous, because I've always struggled to get sweet potatoes to shoot like this. But it can be done. It indeed can be done. I love sweet potatoes. I've grown sweet potatoes, but to see them like this, I really want to try and do this next year and get decent sweet potatoes from slips. Andy has found snails on his garlic. His comment was actually, gardeners say that garlic scares off snails and slugs. The snail says, hold my beer. Because here they go, going straight out for it and into there. So excellent, excellent. Well, not excellent, but at least they're easy to catch. Nicola, her duck, she mentioned last week her duck had been missing for about 2 weeks since a fox attack. They thought the fox had got it, but it had been seen. Well, it has been returned. It went into a neighbour's farm. They managed to get it and returned it back to her. As you can see, it's the one at the top of this picture that is the one that went missing, but he looks very happy to be back, or she does, sorry. There's Stephen. He has got these cloches, net cloches from his allotment neighbour who gave up his allotment, and he's using it to protect his plants at home from the cats. Big problem cats are on your garden, but this is one way to stop it from being a problem. I struggle with nets. I do use them, but I struggle with them because I find they get in the way. The good thing with these ones, you can't really see it in this picture, but it's a very fine mesh, so you're not likely to get any birds trapped in them. So that is it. Please do keep posting your pictures in our Facebook group, or you can send them to me via email at richard@adventuregroundpodcast.co.uk, or you can send to me via social media. Just search me out on there. Lots of great photos, everyone. Please do keep posting them. I love, love, love seeing them. I don't always comment. I like to let you all have your comments first, but I love seeing them anyway. So Idaho says, I soaked sugar snap peas a couple of days ago, drained and transferred to paper towel lined plastic storage box, waiting for germination. So I find this interesting. Some people soak pea seeds and some people don't. We did this with a sweet corn recently, didn't we? And I found that the sweet corn made no difference if a seed was soaked. But I'm interested. I probably should do an experiment in a couple of weeks' time to see if peas make any difference. Ian says the old Victorian way was to grow peas was to put spiky broom chopped up, spiky branches, I think that is, chopped up on top of the pea trenches to stop the mice. I think they also used to soak them in paraffin, didn't they? Which I'm not going to do either. My job was a compost maker at the nursery. We used a cow feed mixer to chew up the peat bales, then add the extras like sulfur, NPK, etc. Then I'll drive it to the potting shed. A bit of history going on there. Jenny says, I sow peas into those small strips they sell your veg plants in, like the gutter method, but more manageable for me. Oh, but also a great space filler if you have any pea gaps. Yes, so the gutter method is you fill a gutter up with compost, you put your seeds in it, and then you cover them over with compost, keep them in a greenhouse until they germinate. And then you take that gutter to your bed and you slide the compost straight out of the gutter into a trench in the pea bed where hopefully they will grow. I've tried it in the past, I've just not got anywhere to really do that at the moment in our greenhouse. Greenhouse is just too small for that at the moment. Stuart says, you will be glad to hear I have sold loads of veg this week, 2 for 12 runner, £2 for 12 runner beans plants is about right price, or should I charge less? Thanks, team. If they're selling, people will pay what people are prepared to pay. If they're selling at that price, I say it's fine. Digwell says my amaranth microgreens sold out before the other microgreens yesterday. Fantastic. I do like microgreens. I do grow them a lot. But good to hear they sell. Good to hear they sold. I think they are a hidden source. Ian says, happy days. We used to steam overnight the soil in a boiler to make potting compost. You love hearing these old stories of how people would do things. Hargrave guess, with peas, I find that the mice don't go for them if you germinate them first. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do. That's why I'm taking my peas and growing them in my root trainers to plant out the root trainers. Digwell does say, some say to soak only wrinkly peas before sowing. That does make a bit more sense. Again, I don't know why my pea seeds haven't germinated. I just know they are struggling this year, which is annoying because it is one of the things I wanted to grow a lot of. Ian says, Digwell, do you sell the microgreens in bags, chopped or in trays, growing? And Digwell also says to Stuart, 2 for 6 runner beans at his sale, Stuart. So, yeah, that's a good question, actually, Digwell. Are you selling your microgreens chopped in bags or in trays growing like you would get from a supermarket with the living salads and what have you? We were going to do a car boot yesterday, funny enough, but we didn't think the weather was going to be on our side. And I got quite a few tomato plants that I need to sell on. So I was hoping to do it down there. Not going to happen now, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Still got time. Scott says, I do the gutter method. Works well if you run string along the bottom of a gutter. It helps when sliding them out, as that can be a problem getting them out. There we go. Digwell says to Ian he sells them in trays. So there we go. And Jenny says, I have never soaked a seed, never had a problem. I always think the jury is out on that. It's going to be an experiment I'm going to do in a couple of weeks' time when we sow some more pea seeds to see if there is any difference. Idaho says, ever since I learned about the gutter method for peas, I've continued with it. Big success for me. I just had to cut smaller gutter sections because I couldn't handle nor have the space for long gutters. Excuse me. I think I'm going to have to drag out my gutter. I've still got it somewhere, but I think I'm going to have to drag it out and see if I can use it. I've been sitting down for so long this evening that my belt has started digging into me, which is never comfortable, is it? I'm not going to stand up and start sorting it out in front of you guys. Don't worry. We've only got just over 10 minutes to go, so I can at least carry on with this for the time being. If you do want to zap in, I've just added the link in the comments. So zap in, click the button, and appear on the screen. Now, next week's live stream, I've got an idea that I want to float with you guys. At the moment, I've got a lot of rhubarb and I've got a lot of spinach. So I'm looking for spinach and rhubarb recipes. And I'm thinking next week, I want you guys to come up with some or share your ideas on how I can use these two fantastic foods in our kitchen, and rhubarb and spinach. Obviously not together because I think that would be quite revolting. That being said, rhubarb and pork goes really well together, we've discovered by accident. So yeah, get your thinking caps on for next week for some recipe ideas for rhubarb and spinach. Digwell says, selling the microgreens in trays, they are considered to be a living plant. Selling them chopped, they are food and you need hygiene certificates. The council even wanted me to fit mains water to the shed. No way. Yeah, this is a trouble when it comes to selling food, is there's so much bureaucracy to get gets in the way. It's a shame because I know many of us could grow, and it's just selling surplus, that is. If you're selling surplus, then you can get away with it. But if you're selling, like if you're growing leeks in order to sell, the bureaucracy that gets in the way And you could say it's for the right reasons. Jury's out on that, but it does get in the way. And I think this, I'm going to get on a bit of a high horse here, get a bit of a high horse. So many people at the moment are struggling to get food, and healthy food at that, good quality food, that people who are growing the food and would love to sell it on cannot. It's wrong. It may be wrong, actually. That's for you to share your opinion in the last few minutes, whether it's wrong or not. But I personally, I just think it's a bit wrong that all these traceability, it's called, that if you're buying a leek, they have to know where it's come from. I guess when you hear about the E. coli outbreaks that happen in salad leaves and things like that, you can understand it. But then that's been tracked. Well, that's been in places that have these strong hygiene, or supposedly hygiene, yet E. coli does break out in salad leaves. I've never, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I've never heard of E. coli breaking out in some homegrown salad leaves. I could be wrong. If anybody has heard of an example, excuse me, let me know in the comments. But I cannot think of any at all. I'll tell you what as well, when I finish this show in a few minutes, it's still be light outside, but I've got to go and water the garden. It's been that hot over the last couple of days. I've actually got to water the garden. Added to that, I'm obviously getting lots and lots of plants into the bed, so they probably do need a good watering, especially as the ones that were planted out yesterday need that water to establish them a little bit better, or really get them established. My leeks, my spring onions, the pickling onions, lovely things. They need those to get established. But things like my carrots, actually, I'm struggling with carrots also this year. They haven't germinated when they're sown in the ground. If you saw my veggie pod video, the ones in the veggie pod are doing fantastic, but the ones in the ground just haven't broken through, same as parsnips and other things like that. Stuart Jackson says leeks get shipped all over the world. You can't tell me they are cleaner than the ones I grow, but local. Then at least you know where it comes from. I mean, you are right. You are completely right, and that's my sort of mentality or my thought as well. That being said, how do you know where it comes from? This is the traceability aspect of it. Jenny says there is dangerous bacteria and chemicals in washed, wrapped, and plastic veg in shops. Then there will be in fresh produce. There is more dangerous bacteria and chemicals in washed, wrapped in plastic vegetables in shops than there will be in fresh produce. Yeah, I agree with that. But Digrab does go on to say a lot has to be traceable these days. E.g., my friend had a watercress bed in the stream through his garden. It had to be tested every year for E. coli and flukes, etc. Yeah, I know this is the trouble. And I get it. I do get it. You don't want to be making anybody ill. You don't want anything to. You don't want to be selling food that's going to make people ill. And we have had outbreaks, as I said, of E. coli going on in places in salad leaves, and they've traced it back to source to stop it from happening. But is it bureaucracy? Is it the nanny state? I'll let you guys decide that. Ian says the weather is going to be better this week. That'll be nice. I can't see the weather. Oh, hang on, is it coming up on the weather? No, it's not. I can't see the weather on this at the moment. I'm getting really uncomfortable with this belt. Let's see if I can sort it out. It just digs in. It just digs straight into my stomach. I know I'm overweight, and it just digs in. It's really uncomfortable. It's cutting the skin, sort of thing. And they say that growing your own food is unhealthy, etc., etc. It's not. But yeah, E. coli and what's the other listeria, isn't it? That's another one. Or salmonella, I think, is found in food as well sometimes. Vegetables, that is. It does make you worry. But then, is it not found in rain? Is it not anywhere like that? I don't know. Right, we've got 4 minutes to go of this show, so I'm going to start wrapping up and let you know. Like I said, next week I want your rhubarb recipes, your spinach recipes. On the podcast tomorrow, we're going to be talking about um, um, how to grow sweet corn. I've got a couple of videos this week. We've got a grow along video, which I'm putting out, and I've got a video of the straw bale garden as well. Um, and see what happens. Jenny says, flip to a photo and sort your belt out. That's a good idea. I didn't think of that. Have I got a photo? No, I've taken all the photos off. I took all the photos off, didn't I? So that's no good. Yeah, I'll sort it out. There's only a few minutes to go and I will sort it out then. Digwell was saying, how many of you wash your supermarket salad leaves before eating them? I don't think I ever have. I don't think I ever have. I know we should. The same as you're meant to wash a chicken as well, aren't you? I've never really done that either, but it is a good point. It is all a very good point. Yeah, my homegrown stuff I do wash just to be on the safe side. Ian says it's old age and bloating, Richard. Try a glass of warm water. It helps. It's just sitting here. It's That's why I don't usually wear a belt when I'm doing this. It's sitting down for long periods. Digwell says spinach and rhubarb cake. Is that an actual thing? I've never known it, but I will. It's recipes I'm looking for next week. Kate says, have a great week, everyone. Barry Sin says, see you all next week for folks. Great show. Stuart Jackson says, before we all go, thanks to all for the advice and ideas. See you all next week. A great live. Yep. Have a good week, everyone. And Jenny says, I don't buy supermarket veg. It makes me ill. Yeah, I very rarely buy supermarket veg these days now. Our freezer is just so full, especially rhubarb and spinach at the moment, and it's filling up nicely. Anyway, guys, let's start wrapping this up and get out of here. As I said, please do send your recipes in for next week. You can add them in the comments, videos, or anything like that would be great. Trying to think. Anybody going to Ghana's World Live in Birmingham next month? Let us know if you are going, and we'll try and arrange a time and a place to meet up. I'm going hopefully on a Thursday and a Friday, so it'd be good to get a bit of a get together, perhaps meet up for a cup of coffee or something, and what have you. Ian says, great show, and cheers all. Anyway, right. This belt is killing me, so I'm going to call this a night. Thanks so much to everybody for joining us. Thank you so much to Kate for the video from last week. Thank you so much for all the ideas and sharing your time-saving tips. I think we've had some great ideas this week for time-saving tips. We will be back again next Sunday at 6 p.m. as always. So until then, please take care.